There we go. Put the
There we
cover in the book.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry introduced show where we specialize in comics, TV, film, music, and video games. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sass. I just want to thank everyone for stopping by this interview here today. We got Petey the Bird back here with us as co-host yet again. The little feathered friend who doesn't shut up is definitely still with us here now. Long story, I won't bore you with the details. Anyhow, long and short of it is he's back. But we are here today after a very busy summer, so I apologize for lack of interviews. Those that checked out the Super Summer Comic-Con 2 with Rob Archer and a variety of other guests, I really appreciate that. Like, subscribe, download, do all that other jazz. Share the Facebook page, and of course, I'm on Twitter as well. But we're starting September. We're starting year 7 of Two Geeks Talking with a returning guest. She has been on the show many times in the past, and I've enjoyed all of our conversations with her, from giant mecha robots to her finally using color after all these years.
Just for you, Kurt. Just for you.
We are joined today by an author, webcomic creator of Adrastus comic. She's also the author of Mastering Manga Studio 5. She's back today with a brand new book coming out very soon, I do hope.
Yes,
of course, we're joined today by Liz Staley, author now of, secondary author, or two-time author, here we go, two-time author of Manga Studio EX5 Cookbook. Welcome back, Liz. How you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Very glad to be on the road to publishing with this one.
Good stuff, good stuff. And of course, the chirping in the background means Petey agrees with me as well, too. That's good to see. It's good to see that, you know, such a great program like Manga Studio that we've used in the past, that we've also heard in the past, that many comic creators, online and traditional, have started using or continue to use in the past. But talk about Manga Studio EX5 Cookbook, because I remember when you first posted about a cookbook, I'm like, hey, I've done a cookbook before. I've helped
different kind of cookbook. So this one has nothing to do with food. But what it is they call it a cookbook because it has recipes for different tasks to do in Manga Studio. So, like, the first chapter is all about setting up custom pages, you know, making multi-page files, doing 2-page spreads. You know, so if you're doing a task, you know, like, hey, isn't there some way that I can, you know, import my own 3D model into this thing? You can go to the cookbook and you can open it up, and it'll show step by step with, you know, screenshots or whatever, what exactly you need to do. And then if there's more information about, you know, like different tips or like explaining kind of why you do it that way or how the process works, then there's a section after that, kind of like, you know, how you have in a cookbook, you know, you've got like your list of ingredients, and then you've got your, you know, here's how to put them together and here's what temperature to bake them at. So that's the same concept there. You get a list of numbered steps and then more information where it's needed. Some stuff was so easy, you know, so straightforward, there wasn't really any more info to put in, you know. And then it'll also tell you, like, oh, if you you know, are using the page manager, here's other recipes that fall with the page manager. Here's other stuff you can do with it. So it's a really nice little reference book to be like, hey, I need to, you know, make a 9x12 page. How do I do that? Let me go over here and look. Okay, here's what I do. So that's the basic concept of it. And for those who don't use EX5 and just have regular Manga Studio 5, or Clip Studio Paint as they call the digital one, about 95% of the book is still going to be relevant to you. Just the stuff with like the multi-page is, you know, you're not going to be able to use it because that's really the big difference between EX and regular 5. So,
cool.
So yeah, 95% of the book still works for Manga Studio 5, Clip Studio Paint, whatever they're calling, you know. I think the Clip Studio Paint EX one is Clip Studio Paint Pro. So I have to keep explaining, like, it's the same program, guys. It's the exact same program. So But yeah, like speaking of busy summers, I've been working on this book since the beginning of May, and now it's September, and we're starting to go to publishing. So I mean, the deadlines have been right on top of each other, and it's just been crazy. I've barely had time to breathe at all. I'm like, where did the past 5 months go? 4 months ago? They're just gone. I don't know where they went. So.
Well, Smith Micro has always had some amazing products, and they continue to improve on the products and the software that they have. So I can understand the need for a secondary book, especially in the intermediate to advanced users that are out there. And it's glad to see that they tapped you yet again to take control and take the helm of this particular series.
I was really shocked with that, actually. They sent me the publisher packet, sent me an email, and they're like, hey, so we're looking at getting a Manga Studio cookbook written. This is the thing that they do with a lot of their programs and a lot of their coding and stuff that they do books for. They're like, we're looking to get a cookbook written. And since Mastering Manga Studio 5 has been one of our biggest sellers, one of our greatest successes, would you like to write another book? And I'm like, well, first of all, twist my arm. Second of all, you didn't really need to butter me up first. Like, I would have said yes, but so yeah, it was really nice to be tapped again. This one is a lot different with the format than the mastering book, but I think that they go really well together. And of course, the cookbook was written on 5.0.5, and halfway through it, Smith Micro goes, here's an update, 5.0.6. I was like, oh my God. It's like tears. Please don't do this to me. Because the last book, what is it? Like 2 days after it was published, they released like 5.0.1 or something. I was like, come on, guys, you're killing me.
I just finished this chapter.
Like, I just did the book. But thankfully, they never changed like a whole lot. So like even Mastering Manga Studio 5, even 2 years later, you can still kind of look through, and stuff might be a little, the name of it might be changed a little bit, but it's still relevant. And I think that the books go really well together. But writing the cookbook was definitely a little bit more of a challenge, because the way that the publisher wants it with the numbered steps, they don't want a whole lot of fluff in there.
Yeah.
And I always try to let my personality come through. So it was like, okay, I have to write these steps like as blandly as possible. And then for like the how it works thing, I'm like, okay, now I can be kind of a little bit funny and a little, I don't know, crazy, wacky, whatever you want to call me.
you can be you, basically.
Yeah, I can be me. But the first like chapter or two, I'm like, oh God, is this book boring? Like, everyone's gonna read it and be like, this book's so boring. But I think that if you need the more information, you can kind of see my personality coming through. So,
well, if you needed boring technical writing, you should have come to me. I would have been happy to help you out with that.
I hate boring technical writing. I hate it so much.
Unfortunately, being in computers, that's what I lived for, was just like, hey, step by step by step by step by step. And the fact that you can apply that to any software or any type of program. Usually there's a lot of people that just want to get to, how do I do this, or how can I do this quickly, easily, efficiently, so I can move on to, the more tedious stuff like coloring.
Right. Yeah. And that was definitely interesting with doing did a whole chapter on special effects stuff, like making laser blasts and making like lightning, and stuff like that, doing like colored light on a object. And a lot of that is, I have to preface it with, this is how I do it. It's not the only way to do it, but hopefully, with stuff like that, it's not just like the technical stuff, like here's how to make a multi-page file. Here's how to make a 2-page spread. Hopefully you can take that technique and be like, I don't really like the look of this, but if I do it this way and apply my own style to it, that's really what I want people to do with all these tutorials, is to go, okay, well, here's one way I can do it, but I want it to look more like thing here, so I'll, change this layer blending mode or whatever, and put your own spin on it.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, I guess what it comes down to is because Smith Micro has always evolved their software.
He agrees.
He agrees. Because Smith Micro has always evolved their software, one of their major competitors, well, one of the main ones that everyone knows of is, of course, Adobe Photoshop. In working with the software as long as you have, and it's been out for almost 5 years now, something like that.
Yeah, 5 has been out for about 2 or 3 years, I think.
Okay. But the entire software itself.
Yeah, I was doing on 4, and then I know that Byron Wilkins, I think, was working in 3.
3, right?
So it's been around for a while. You know, they've been evolving it for a while.
Exactly. Do you feel that it's caught up to Photoshop now? Because I know one of the major complaints was coloring, but in terms of software versus software, we'll go in that aspect.
Here is my down and dirty with Photoshop and Manga Studio. If you're drawing in it, do it in Manga Studio. Especially, like, people, you know, come up to me at cons all the time, and, you know, they hear that I'm this Manga Studio expert, which I never call myself that, but other people do. You know, I've just been paid to press all the buttons in the software and write down what they do. But people will be like, I heard it can't do color. And then I just point to everything behind me on the big wall of prints, and like everything back there was done in Manga Studio 5. They really, really, really upped the game in Manga Studio 5 as far as like the color and the natural media brushes, like the oil paint and the watercolor. They are so beautiful. Just everything about drawing in it to me is a joy. You know, like the pencils feel like pencils, and the pens feel like pens, you know, and I can just, you know, really kind of connect to the media. With Photoshop, you know, Photoshop was made for making photos, you know, for photo editing. And so I think that if you're doing illustration or digital painting, or especially comics, you know, because they've got the specific comic tools in there, you should be using Manga Studio 5 over Photoshop. I mean, the only thing that I am not happy about Manga Studio 5 right now is that they don't have all the little nitty-gritty text stuff. You know, like you can't go in there and adjust like the kerning and the leading. But I mean, if you're not doing logos and stuff, and you can do vector and raster, you know, on 2 different layers on the same file. So I just really think that if you're doing any sort of illustration, digital illustration, or comics, you should be using Manga Studio 5. So, and some people have looked at me crazy when I say that to them at cons, but then I start telling them why, you know, and it's got the rulers and all kinds of this stuff, and I maybe even, you know, show them a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Like, yes, it's really cool.
Well, and like anything, when it comes to software or anything along that line, they're always making improvements. They're always updating. They're always working on things. And so something along the customization factor, I'm sure it's on their list of, you know, on that whiteboard that's kind of behind the program, is saying, you know, throw a dart at something and let's work on that today type deal. So.
Well, and the program, like the interface, people tweet me all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I opened up Manga Studio 5 and the interface was just terrifying." And I'm like, you realize you can move all that stuff around, right? Like, you can make it look like Photoshop. You know, you can move everything around. You can set it up exactly how you want it. I've got it set up in what I call left-handed mode because I'm left-handed. So I kind of shove all the menus over to the left. You know, so I mean, you can customize the whole interface, and you can make all these custom brushes, which there's a whole chapter on in the cookbook on how to make different brushes. You know, so you can just really set it up how you love it, and make tools like, you know, I've got a leaf brush that I use for doing leaves on trees to make it easier and stuff like that. So
wait, you mean you can do a brush to draw leaves? I was doing that stuff by hand. What the
hell? Yes, I have in fact, that is in the cookbook, the recipe for making the leaf brush. And actually got the idea from Smith Micro had released a leaf brush, and I was like, I've been looking for this forever. It's so beautiful. So then I kind of made my own for the cookbook.
Nice.
So
you know, you obviously you do the whole convention circuit whenever you can. You're, you know, between writing books, you do the convention circuit, and you do Adrastus comic, and, you know, you're active on social media, etc. When it comes to the convention, when it comes to questions on social media, can you list about maybe the 5 most common ones that you keep having to answer over and over again? Because I think the third book you're going to have to write is questions I get asked about Manga Studio.
Oh, I've actually thought about taking the actual Smith Micro guides and rewriting them. Oh, let me see. Can I export vectors as you know, a .ai or something? The answer is no, unfortunately. Manga Studio vectors, you cannot export them and, you know, edit them in Illustrator or something.
Is there a workaround
where is X tool, which I then have to like circle? There's always, you know, the interface is scary. You know, how do I move this stuff? I always get asked when I take screenshots of stuff that I'm working on. I use the subview tool a lot. It's like one of the best things about Manga Studio 5. It's a window, like the navigator window, and you can load files in it. So I actually have like all of my character sheets for Adrastus, all my character designs in there.
Nice.
And so I can go in and look and be like, oh, how exactly do I draw Nancy's hair? And I can go in and I can look at it, and then say I'm coloring, you know, pinup or something, and I can be like, oh, what's the color that I use for Nancy's hair? And I can switch to the eyedropper and just pull it straight off of that file. So people will be like, what is that? Like, what's that window up there? Is it showing some sort of hidden layer? How to use the rulers, especially the perspective ruler. I get asked that one a lot. And usually I get a lot on like YouTube, some widgety questions on one of my older tutorials about setting up custom pages, where I didn't realize until I wrote this past book that there's a tiny bug in Manga Studio 5, and you have to do the steps in a certain order that's not quite clear. So those are probably my top ones that I get asked a lot.
Was there anything with these in making this cookbook that you well, let me step back. When it comes to this particular book, though, obviously you wrote the first one, huge success, you know, everyone online loves it. From that,
I'm getting paid royalties instead of just making back my advance, so that's awesome.
Royalties are nice.
Royalties are great, and everyone who bought the book, I mean, they made that happen. You know, they made the second book happen by their support. So thank you to everyone out there who bought the first book. You guys are my heroes.
What I'd like to see is a combination of you know, how Amazon does it, where if you bought this book, you know, a lot of people buy this and this. So you know, you should have your other one linked next to it. The process for the first book, obviously, first time being an author, was there anyone that you drew upon to kind of guide you in becoming a new author? Or was
well,
it
I mean,
trial and error?
It was more kind of trial and error. Just kind of, you know, what if I was reading this book, what info would I want in it, and what tone would I want it, you know? And then for this book, the publisher had a lot more like specific stuff that they wanted. You know, they wanted an entire chapter on blending modes. You know, they had specific points in their emails that they were like, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about this. So there was a little bit more influence from the publisher there. And, you know, in trying to hit all those points, I couldn't spend a whole lot of time on some other stuff that I wanted to spend time on. But I mean, that's the compromise when you're working with a publisher instead of just self-publishing. You know, you kind of have to do what they want. But it was okay. I mean, we made a really good book out of it. So
nice.
And this feedback from the test readers has been really positive. So
nice. I was gonna say then, what was the process for the second book? How did you become more efficient with it? Was there more of a guide you had to follow? And you might have already answered that, but
actually, so I can show you guys something really interesting. For the cookbook, you know, they got these specific recipes, and they sent me an Excel thing, you know, to kind of help with me making the recipes. So I'm gonna hold this up. So this was the entire book
in colorful spreadsheet format. Ooh.
So it was, you know, about a page and a half, and they sent me this thing, and you know, you write down like, okay, here's the number, and here's kind of the title, and here's what chapter it should be in, and then they had like levels, so it's like simple or intermediate or like an advanced, or they had one called wow.
Wow.
Wow. And then, you know, you have to So that would be like the really, really, oh my God, that's so cool. And then, a little description, and then you kind of had to estimate your number of pages, which I am awful at. Like all of these went over. The
Hey,
second,
more bang for your buck.
oh yeah, well the second chapter for the brushes was only supposed to be like, I don't know, 25 pages, and I think it ended up being 75 or 100.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I tore my hair out over that. So I mean, this was like the first step in the book here, and I had to make sure that I had all their stuff that they wanted in there. And then people were always like, oh, it's so colorful. Well, that was me highlighting it when I finished writing, and then the ones that are like crossed out were, what that one actually really doesn't belong in this book, so let me take that out. So yeah, this is the whole book right here on this piece of paper.
Oh, well, now that the book is in, it's off to the publishers already, correct?
Right now we are in like a pre-publishing, editing
like
kind of
editing
stage.
mode?
The technical editors are at it. They've been sending the chapters out because we were trying to get this book out fast.
Yeah.
So they've been sending the chapters to test readers the entire time I've been working on it, and they sent me about 8 chapters before I managed to have a moment to step back and go, okay, let me get through these. And actually, chapter 4 didn't require any edits at all, so that was pretty good.
Nice.
So after I read the test reader comments, I get to yay or nay any changes, make any edits, and then we added some stuff in, cleared some stuff up, added some tips. And so now it's off to the technical editors to make sure that it matches the style, and they're going through with they've got a trial version. That's the word I was looking for, of Manga Studio. So they're kind of testing, and just making sure everything fits, and I don't use the wrong there when I'm typing or something. And after that, I go through and yeah, I know, right? Then I go through and approve, and then once everything's approved, it gets sent off to printing. So there's still some stuff for me to do, but the bulk writing is done. So
that's awesome.
And we actually we're slating it for November release, and then I've just been so ahead of schedule the entire time, just cranking chapters, that they were like, "Do we want to try to get this done in September?" And I was like, if we are ready to go, let's rock. Let's go. Let's just rock it out and get this thing out as quick as possible. If we've already got the drafts done, let's just do it. So we ended up moving the book up 2 months.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what have you personally learned then from making the second book? It looks like you have a bit of a larger team working with you this time around, from what I'm gathering.
It's about the same size of team. I've been working a little bit closer with I have a different contact over at Packet for this book than I did the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And she and I have been working really close together, going back and forth. I have a question about, hey, somebody said this back in the chapter 2 comments. Should I change it? And I'm working on chapter 9. Should I change like this stuff? It's about the same process and about the same size of team. So you should get the same quality as Mastering Manga Studio 5.
So it's going to be awesome quality then.
Yeah.
Well, then, what have you personally learned from this experience from the second book? Then?
Well, I've learned a lot of new stuff, of course, about the software. Because it'd be like, oh, well, we want a chapter on the layer blending modes. So okay, well, I have to go in and I have to write about, okay, here's what happens when you set a layer on multiply. And not just like, oh, this changes color, but like what actually it does. So I actually learned a little bit about like the math of like the subtract mode. And then there was stuff that I would stumble on completely by accident. Because, I'd be like, oh, well, when I was planning the book on that spreadsheet, I'd just be going through and going, okay, this thing looks pretty cool. I'll play with it when I get to the recipe. And it looks like it does blah thing. and then I would get in playing with it and be like, oh, I can do this, and I can put in all my text, and oh, I can, blah blah blah, and learning how to make the brushes. And I actually just released a YouTube tutorial, because now that I'm done writing the book, I can go back to doing that too, with a feature that I found totally by accident, where I was just like, what does this menu option do? And I pressed it, and I was like, oh, this is the most awesome thing ever. Because I have a lot of people that are like, oh, well, I like to ink on paper and then scan it in. Can I do that? And I'm like, absolutely you can. And this feature that I found, you can do that, plop it into Manga Studio, hit this button, and the white of your paper becomes transparent.
Nice.
And it keeps your lines black. Or you can even do it with like a photo. It's a convert brightness to opacity kind of thing. So the grays would, become, whatever level of opacity. But right. I was just like, oh, this is so great for the people that scan their work in. Mm-hmm. So I also have a YouTube channel where I put up tutorials and stuff, and I'll be doing that more now that the book is over. I was gearing up to do it every week or every other week, and then it was like, would you like to write a book? Oh, okay, I'll put all my plans on hold.
Money versus
advanced money and royalties versus YouTube tutorials. Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
So what's the YouTube channel, by the way? Because I know we're going to post it in the chat.
It's youtube.com/Liz Staley. And there's actually, we've got like 150 subscribers or something, which I'm like, where'd you all come from? But I actually just launched a Patreon campaign as well. So if you like the videos that are there and want to see more of them and help me make more, because these videos, the book takes time. These videos take time. Putting this stuff together and putting it out there for free. I love doing it. I love talking about the software. I am super duper passionate about the fans of the software and the artists who want to get into the software, and trying to put more information on how to use it out there. Because I think that's one of the hardest things right now is, I want to use Manga Studio 5, but there's not a for dummies book, or something you can just go to. And, the guides for it are written kind of funny, and they don't really give you a lot of info. So I really love to help other artists with the program. So doing the YouTube channel is a great way for me to do that, record some videos, but it takes so much work.
Yeah.
So I set up a Patreon campaign for that as well, and it's patreon.com/Liz Staley. So, and there's some awesome perks. You get early access to videos. We've got some goals, and there will be Google Plus Hangouts where you can, live questions and stuff later on down the road when we get a little bit more support going through. So that'll be pretty fun. Awesome. I'm excited to go back to one-on-one helping the community like that, and putting the stuff out there that I figured out that couldn't go in the book.
Well, yeah, I could see a third book coming out with the things that I forgot in the cookbook, or things from behind the cupboard, or something like that.
The pantry.
It would have been in the. We'll take the stuff from the pantry. And we'll bring it to the sunroom. Yes, that's wonderful. Then Colonel Mustard will hit us over the head with a pilot. Have to figure it all out. Convention-wise, what conventions did you happen to do this year, or was this more based on the book this year?
Well, it was pretty light on conventions.
In general,
I had OhioCon in January, which was great. Oh my God, OhioCon was the best convention I've ever done. And I had a little high school one-day thing that I did locally, and actually right around the beginning of August, there was a little convention at a local library in Hagerstown, Maryland, that I went to and shared a table with Tamaran Comic.
Don't know.
And
don't know that one.
Oh, you don't know Tamaran? Oh, I'm gonna introduce you to Tamaran. Okay, it's a fantasy webcomic, and they're locals here, and they're awesome people, and they're, oh my God, just a fantastic comic. I'm gonna have to gush about it for a second, but and then of course I just went to Intervention Con, and that's gonna be my last one for the year.
I still have to do that.
Oh my God, I love Intervention Con. I love the panels. I gave away this huge box of. I've been doing the Manga Studio 5 panel for the past 3 years, I think, and Oni, the con chair freaking tweets me like 2 days before the con, and she's like, "Hey, we have a whole box of software for you to give away at your panel." And I'm like, "Oh, sweet, okay." So Saturday morning, I go to pick it up, and I mean, there's this crate of Manga Studio 5, EX, Manga Studio 5, Anime Studio Pro 10, Anime Studio, Motion Artist. There was one poor, sad little copy of Manga Studio 4 in there. That I was like, who wants it? You can upgrade. So I mean, they just had this gigantic box of software to give away, and I was just like handing out software like candy. So it was great. People were trying to like mug me in the hallway as I'm on my way to my panel. I'm like, get away.
Here, carry this, and you'll get maybe Manga Studio 4. Maybe.
Yeah, Intervention is one of my favorite cons of the year, and planning some stuff for next year. Definitely doing OhioCon again. I wasn't going to do it, but then I entered a contest. They were doing like some sort of feedback, from the artist thing, and they were like, "Oh, if you fill out the survey, chance for a free table." And well, guess who won the free table? So I will be at OhioCon again, and definitely doing Intervention again next year if they'll have me back, and potentially doing KatsuCon and AwesomeCon. I've got applications in, nice. So maybe some more cons next year.
I've heard good things about Awesome. I've heard great things. Well, obviously I've talked with only a couple of times, and James as well, and great people. Love.
Oh God, I had a panel on Saturday night this past Intervention with Oni and Tom and Cam from Shadowbinders.
Nice.
And oh my God, we carried on, and I mean, because we were talking about staying motivated, because we've all, we've had all problems, and oh my God, we were just, I mean, Oni is a trip anyway. I mean, she's just so funny, and then it was me and Tom and Cam and Oni, and just some crazy stuff came out, but it was great. It was so much fun. And I love Intervention. Oh my God, it's just like great time party, especially if you like to learn things. If you're just going to, watch videos and shop, it's, probably not the con for you. But if you're going because you want to get into podcasting or want to learn how to make a webcomic or learn how to, run a business, it's a great con to go to, because that's really what Intervention is about.
I got to submit my application one of these days and see if I can get the podcasting stuff.
Oh, that would be awesome. You got to come.
That's in Maryland, right?
Yes, Rockville, Maryland.
Never actually been to Maryland. I've done the drive to Chicago, so it shouldn't be too bad. But
it's not bad.
Was it 10 hours?
I mean, maybe. Well, you could stop here at my house on your way down there, because I'm like an hour away from Rockville. So
sweet. That would be really.
So Friday morning, we jumped in my truck and drove on down there and stayed at the hotel, and then Sunday evening we drove back. So.
Well, if you find a place, as long as I'm not sleeping in the paddock or anything like that, I'll be perfectly fine.
You don't want to sleep at the barn?
I don't know.
Glory would pin her ears at you and be like, "What are you doing in my paddock? Get out!"
like kick me with her hoof, Damn, you're snoring again. What the hell? Crazy Canadians, jeez.
Stay away from my hay.
Yeah. Hay fever. Oh, jeez, not again. I better stock up and reacting. Anyhow. Is there anything that I haven't brought up about the cookbook, about yourself? I mean, you're always so freaking busy,
Especially this year has been crazy. Oh geez, I don't even know. Like, the whole book writing process has just been crazy, and I said I don't know where anything from May till now went. Like, it was just all gone in this haze of craziness. I think I mentioned that, anybody who uses Manga Studio 5 can certainly use the book. It's not just for EX users, because there's not really that much of a difference between the two programs.
I almost thought for a second there that it was like Manga Studio EX/5 type deal. Like it could be and or type situation. That's how I read the title. So
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the publisher. I was telling you before we started that the publisher and I went kind of back and forth on that, because I was like, "There's not much difference between the program." You know, I feel like people who are like, "Oh, well, I just have 5. I don't have EX, so I can't use this book." You know, like I just want to say to those people, no, you absolutely can use this book. You know, if you've got questions and want to learn new things, just skip the ones about multi-page anything, and you'll be okay.
Nice. I guess for final question here, is there any updates to maybe the next version, like the next full version, not like a basic update, but the next major update for Manga Studio? Is there something that you personally like to see that you think could garner a new batch of artists to the software?
There's some little tweaks that I would like, but I don't know if it would be like a whole new thing. Like I said, the text tools, I would really like to see a little bit more control on them. I honestly really liked the way you made speech bubbles in 4, where you would just like, okay, I want a speech bubble around this thing, and it would just pop it up instead of having to like click and drag. But yeah, I can't really think of anything except for maybe for them to. I get so many questions at conventions, so many people interested in the 3D features.
Nice.
And apparently, the program over in Japan with Celsius, they actually have a modeling software. You know, that you can model stuff and then bring it over into Manga Studio.
Oh, nice.
And I would really love to see a translation of that. That is like number 1 on my list. Because I get questions constantly. I was this year at Intervention, running my panel, and I'm like, I might make it through this panel without getting a question about the 3D stuff. I get like before the panel, I was running it on my husband's little Lenovo Yoga little tablet thing. Yeah. And so before the panel, I had like set up a file with 3D stuff already in it. It was actually a file that I had used for the book. You know, so I already had 3D models loaded in. I was like, okay, someone's going to ask me stuff about 3D, so, you know, the 3D tools. Yeah. And I'm going to have this loaded already and it'll be ready to go. So we don't have to sit here and wait. Well, then it was like probably, I don't know, 15 minutes for the panel was over. And I'm like, I'm going to make it through this panel without getting a question about 3D stuff. And then somebody asked. It was like, aha! There it is. But yeah, I always get questions. Always get questions about the 3D stuff, and I would really love to see that modeler program.
Nice.
Translated over. I just like, come on, guys, where is it? So
give them time. I mean, they're only human, unless you know they will.
Yeah. So I mean, just like give me a translation, guys. But I mean, in the meantime, if you know how to model, you know, 3D stuff in Blender, or, you know. Anything else, you know, Poser, of course, another Smith Micro program. You know, you can model. I actually want to model or get somebody to model Adrastus for me, so I can like plop him into my pages and like pose him.
I'm sure
just like draw. So.
I'm sure you have a fan base that would love to do something in Poser for you.
Oh, I don't know about the fan base, but I'm sure I could pay somebody. I don't know if anybody out there wants to model a fairly simple giant robot that really just kind of looks like a guy in, you know, Greco-Roman gladiator armor.
A big
you know, hit me up, and I would love to have you model something that I can just. I mean, it would just be for me to just plop in pages and pose, you know, for some of the harder shots.
Yeah.
So. Wouldn't have to be anything too complicated. I just need a model and some bones in it.
I think one of the pages for the cookbook, if you would have done the Baked Alaska comic, I think that would have just.
Oh my god, that would have been really funny.
Well, you know, Liz, I hate to say it, but we always have a great time chatting on this show here, and we go off on the tangents. But I think we stuck on target pretty well here.
I think we did. It probably helps that like all I've really thought about for the past 4 months has been this book. I'm like still in book mode actually. Like I'm like looking around, and you know, I've got a couple of little like commission things to do, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, there has to be more book stuff. right? Like, is there more book stuff that I need to do right now? There's not. Crap, what am I going to do? So earlier today, I was working on stuff for my brother-in-law's wedding that's coming up in 2 weeks, and I was just like, but there has to be book stuff, right? No, there's not any book stuff.
This is what happens when you're too efficient.
I actually, I originally was supposed to have the Chapter 11 draft in like 4 days ago. And, they've had it long enough that not only did they have it, but they have sent me back the comments on it, and then I've sent them back the second draft. So that was several days ago. So, I was pretty efficient on that. I was just like ready to have these drafts done.
Awesome. Well, I got to say it. That ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. Of course, we are joined today by Liz Staley, creator of Adrastus comic.com. Of course, the author of the Mastering Manga Studio 5. Is it? Yeah, Mastering Manga Studio.
Mastering Manga Studio 5, and then the Manga Studio EX5 Cookbook.
Right, one of those. And of course, you can find all of these links also in the show notes here, but you'll also find them on of course, Liz's website, as well as a variety of other links that we'll have there as well too. Liz, thanks so much once again. Thanks
for having me on such short notice.
I always do this for my guests that I enjoy, and you're back for like the 5th time. It's almost like that Saturday Night Live skit, the 5 Timers Club or whatever.
I think it's been more than 5.
It probably has.
Because I've been on several times for Adrastus, and then for Mastering Manga Studio 5, and then there was like last year when I had just started Adrastus again, but then I put it back on hiatus where Byron was co-hosting.
That's
so
right,
I think I've been on here probably 7 or 8 times.
You know what? Let me take a quick look here on the site, because you probably are the most returning guest I've had on the show, and you've also I think you've co-hosted as well too.
Yeah, I co-hosted at least once with Carlos San Juan.
Oh yeah, Carlos. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that wasn't Sarah? Let's see. We have. Of course, you can find all of the. Let me switch back to me. You can, of course, find all of Liz's work by searching the TGT Media website and type in Liz Staley, and you'll find every single interview, not only from the TGT tournament, but from past interviews as well. Her co-hosting when Leyline Comics was on. Back
that's right. I was on there for that.
Episode 202. Callus Comics, you were the co-host, so 149 then. But you've been on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be your 6th time.
Woo!
Well, there you go, 6th timer.
There we go.
And of course,
hopefully the comic is coming back soon. So
I'm sure.
we're returning with Byron Wilkins as colorist, of course. So we work well together.
Nice. Well, yeah, he does good work too, and you both work well, as you said, together. And of course, he's part of the webcomic.alliance.com, and of course,
which I understand. They have some sort of announcement coming up. There's something on Twitter.
I believe they're doing an anniversary or something like that.
Oh, that could be it. Oh, I think their 5-year anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, I think I'll be in on that one as well too. So that'll be
cool.
That'll be fun. It's been a while since I've chatted with that group there, so it'll be nice to hear them again.
I've been on there one time. I got on there this year finally.
That's the way to do it. You just sneak in there,
Yep.
But of course, you can find Liz's work on tgtmedia.com or twogeekstalking.com. That is the word 2, not the number 2. You can find literally hundreds of interviews from the past 7 years on the show, both in iTunes format and, of course, on YouTube. It is on there, which is, of course, youtube.com/TGT Media. You can find the convention interviews that I've been doing for the past few years on that site as well. And, of course, I've been doing convention interviews since Fan Expo 2010. Speaking of Fan Expo, I will be there roaming the floors, doing interviews with various creative types, maybe 10 to 15 interviews, but I'm only there for a single day, unfortunately, because I have to get back down
You're gonna pack a lot of interviews in that one day.
Yeah, I gotta kind of get it done there so I can keep my press credentials. Um, and on top of that, I will be I'll try to get the best interviews I can and enjoy myself as well while I'm there because it's my only vacation I've had this year. Other than that, thanks everyone for listening and watching. Of course, as always, take the time to like, subscribe to the YouTube channel that you are watching this on. It's here. Just find the red subscribe button. It's usually down here. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Two Geeks Talking. You can find me on Twitter. If you want to be scheduled on the show, tgtmedia.com. Click on the Get Interviewed menu item, which is on the menu on the far right-hand side. Fill out the form. I'll get back to you because it goes directly to me. There's no third party. And I like seeing who wants to be the next creative person on the show. It could be you, like it has been Liz for the last 6 times.
He gets back to you pretty quick, too, usually.
Usually, yeah, if I'm not swamped with school. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. I will see you on another great interview on Two Geeks Talking with another great creative and talented person. See you later.